We are already displaying the user's location on a map, but the experience is far from perfect. So far, on Android, we have to press one button for the map to navigate to where the user actually is. And on iOS, we have to do it ourselves. We have to zoom and pan throughout the map to find where the user is. We do see their location. We do see a blue dot inside of the map, but that is still not the best experience. To solve this, what we can do is implement a functionality inside of our application that will allow us to know when the location changes, that will allow us to navigate or move the map over to where the user is at the same time as we navigate to that spot every time the location changes. So every time the location changes in the device, we should see the map move to that new location. And the first step for us to be able to implement that is to add a new Nuje package. So in the Solution Explorer, I'm going to right-click on the solution. I'm going to select Manage Nuje Packages for Solution, and I'm going to search for sam.plugin.geolocator. And I'm going to be installing it on all of the projects. You'll see the preview for the changes that are going to be made. And once the installation is complete, you'll probably see two tabs that were open. You can close and navigate to the main page.saml.cs file, where we're going to be implementing that functionality. Now, the first thing that we need is to override the onAppearing method. It's in here where we want to evaluate the new location every single time we navigate back to the content page. But also, we're going to be creating an event handler for when that location changes. So let's go ahead and do that. First, I am going to override the onAppearing method. I won't erase the call to the base method, but I will add some functionality here. I will need to create a new variable, which is going to be my locator variable. And I'm going to be assigning a value to whatever is returned by the cross geolocator. By the way, to be able to use this class, we're going to need to add a using directive to plugin.geolocator namespace. And this class is going to have a current property, which is going to be a static property, so we do not need to create an instance of this class. So now from the locator, we can call a method that will allow us to get the position. And the position is going to be assigned to a new variable. And this new variable then is going to be equal to locator.getPositionAsync. And this method is the one that is going to retrieve the location by requesting it to the operating system. Now, this method is an async method, which means that we have to await it. And since we are awaiting an asynchronous method, we have to make the method async as well. And so, once this method has obtained the position and returned it, this variable is going to hold that position. Now that we have the position, the next step is to make the map move to that position. And for that, we already have the locations map available. And the locations map, or any map, is going to have a method that is called moveToRegion. Now, this is going to be a tricky call of a method, because first it requires a map span. So what we can do is directly inside of the parentheses, create a new map span. And you can see how we can autocomplete this through Visual Studio, but then the map span is going to require its own parameters, one of which is also an object. Two are just variables, two doubles, but the first one is going to be another object. So we can create yet another object in here, which is of type position. And here it ends, I promise. All we have to do is pass the latitude and the longitude. In this case, because we already have the position, and the position contains the latitude and the longitude, we can do it pretty quickly. But then, as we get outside of this parenthesis, we are back on the constructor of the map span. And here is where it is going to be requiring two double values. The first one is going to be latitude in degrees, and the second one, longitude in degrees. This is the amount of degrees that the map is going to be displaying. For example, if I set 2 and 2, it is going to display in the center the position that we just created with latitude and longitude, and from that position is going to count 1 degree to the right, 1 degree to the left, and the same to the top and to the bottom because we are passing a 2 as a value. Now, if this confused you, the real thing that is going on in here is that first we are creating a position. And right now I have everything in one line, but what we could have done is have this outside as the center, and for example, define the center variable that is going to be equal to that, and then pass that variable in here. And the same thing for all of this. We are creating a map span. We could have, instead of defining it or calling the constructor directly from within the parentheses for the move to region method, we could have this outside, have a variable that is called span that is equal to that, and finally pass the span. So it's going to be the exact same thing, except previously I had all of the definitions in one line and I didn't really need a variable. I was just passing it directly to the other method. So now that we have this, the last thing that we have to do is know when the location changes. And for that, the locator is going to help us as well, because the locator is going to have a position changed event. Now, so far, we've only created event handlers directly from SAML. And Visual Studio has been very helpful. All we do is write the name of the event, write equal, and Visual Studio does the rest. It assigns the event handler in SAML and it creates the event handler or the method that is going to be the event handler on the C# file. Doing it on C# isn't going to be that hard either. All we have to do is write the name of the event, a space, then write plus equal, and notice that it now says that if you want to insert the new event handler, all you have to do is press tab. And so here it is. Here I can choose to rename the event handler that has just been created. I am fine with this name, so I will just hit apply. Now, this is in the case of Visual Studio on Windows. On the case of Visual Studio on Mac, when you write plus equal, you will see a list of options. You want to find the option that creates a new method. And when you select that option, you will be prompted to select in what part of your code do you want to insert the method. But once you have selected where, you will see a method just like this one. Probably without this line. And it's okay because we do not need this one. What we do need is to do something very similar to what we just did in here, which is create the center, the span, and call the move to region method. This will make sure that the location in the map is always updated to the location of the user. So I can just copy this and paste it inside of this method. Now, of course, inside of this method, we do not have the position, but we do not need to get the position again, because one of the arguments of the method, which is e, already has that position. So instead of position, we can do e.position, and it is going to have both the latitude and the longitude. And that's it. So now, whenever we navigate to this page, we're going to be obtaining the user's location. Then we're going to set that location to be the center of the map. And we also have an event handler for when the position changes. So when the position changes, again, we are going to be setting the location for the user as the center of the map. But there is something else that we have to add first. Right now, we are not listening for location changes. There is an event handler, but the event wouldn't be fired because we are not listening to its changes. It turns out that the locator requires us to set that we are going to be listening for those changes. And the reason why the locator requests this is because listening to the changes can potentially drain the battery of a device very quickly. To be able to start to listen for changes, we have to use from the locator the is start listening async. And the start listening async is going to require a minimum time that will trigger the changes. So this will establish the minimum time that has to pass between changes for the position changed event to actually get fired. In this case, I'm just going to set 0 because I don't want to set any minimum time. What I want to set is a minimum distance. The user has to move at least 100 meters for an event to get fired. And notice that this is an async method, so I have to await it. And now, once this method is called, the locator is actually going to start firing the position changed event. So let's go ahead and test this, and I'm going to start with the Android simulator. And once the app is up and running, I can log in. I can navigate to the map page and I can set a location. I'm going to send first this default location, and so we get that location established. But since we are now listening to changes, I am going to change the latitude and longitude in here, hopefully making this more than 100 meters, which I think are going to be. And so if the location changed more than 100 meters, no matter how much time there was between changes, the event handler should be executed. So I'm going to click on send and notice that indeed the map has moved because the location changed more than 100 meters. We could try this again by changing this dramatically, clicking on send, and notice that the map is moving to that new location. We can of course test this on an iOS simulator as well. Once the application is running, I can log in, can navigate to the map page, and we're going to see the location. Now, in the case of iOS, we can go to the settings of the simulator, which will allow us to set the location to a couple of values, to either the headquarters for Apple, as well as simulate 3 rides that are going to be a bicycle ride, a city run, or a freeway drive. So I'm going to simulate a freeway drive, and in here the location won't be that noticeable. But notice what happens when we do change the location. We see the map move to that new location. So that is how you're going to respond to location changes. We have now used maps into our Android and our iOS applications. We have used location, displaying the user's location into the map, and we have just learned how to respond to the location changes. The next section is going to be very exciting as well. We're going to be consuming web services, which means we're going to learn how to connect to the internet and start consuming data. And we're actually going to be using Foursquare services to get information about venues that we will display to the user so they can add some more information to their posts.